Hello all, I am the Holland Phantom, and for today's video we're going to be counting down my top 10 picks of Gardevoir cards in the trading card game. But before we begin, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and to my Twitter account at Holland_Phantom so you don't miss out on any new Pokemon TCG content. And now with that out of the way, let's get into the countdown. Starting off at number 10, we have Gardevoir Level X from Secret Wonders. It came with the Poke Power and 1 attack. The Poke Power was Teleportation, which could be used once per turn to switch itself in or out of the active spot. And the attack was Bring Down, which needed 2 Psychic Energies to then choose 1 Pokemon on either side of the field with the fewest remaining HP, and then knock that Pokemon out. Gardevoir Level X was not the main Pokemon of its deck, though it did improve its base form Gardevoir, which we'll be seeing later on in this list, by increasing its HP and giving it a useful new ability and a new attack. The Teleportation ability was a good way to move Pokemon around the field without having to pay the retreat cost, and its Bring Down attack was a cheap way to take quick knockouts against the opponent, provided that the lowest HP Pokemon was on the opponent's side, otherwise it would knock out one of its own teammates. Plus, as a Level X Pokemon, Gardevoir had access to the attacks, Poke Powers, and Poke Bodies of its previous form. At number 9, we have Gardevoir EX from Dragon Frontiers. It came with the Poke Power and 1 attack. The Poke Power was Imprison, which could be used once per turn to place an Imprison counter on one of the opponent's Pokemon, and then that Pokemon would not be able to use any Poke Powers or Poke Bodies. And the attack was Flame Ball, which needed 1 Fire Energy and 2 Colorless Energies to deal 80 damage, and then would let Gardevoir move a Fire Energy from itself onto one of the benched Pokemon. This Gardevoir was a Delta Species Pokemon, being a Fire type instead of a Psychic type, and it was released toward the end of the 3rd generation. Its deck focused on shutting down the opponent's Poke Powers and Poke Bodies through its Imprison ability, limiting their options throughout the battle, and Jirachi EX from Crystal Guardians was another way to shut off the opponent's Poke Powers by using its Shield Beam attack. At number 8, we have Radiant Gardevoir from Lost Origin. It came with an ability and 1 attack. The ability was Loving Veil, which would shield all Pokemon on its side of the field from 20 damage dealt by opposing V Pokemon. And the attack was Psychic, which needed 1 Psychic Energy and 2 Colorless Energies to deal 70 damage, and then would deal an extra 20 damage for each energy attached to the opposing Pokemon. Radiant Gardevoir was primarily used for its ability to reduce damage from opposing attacks, allowing its teammates to tank hits and prolong their longevity. And since most of the top attackers of the format were V Pokemon, Radiant Gardevoir could find a use in pretty much every deck. However, it found the most success alongside Hisuian Goodra V-Star, as Goodra's Rolling Iron attack would also reduce oncoming attack damage by 80, so it was a perfect partner for Radiant Gardevoir. Plus, the deck also ran Hyper Potion and Crystal Cave to heal damage off Goodra, keeping it longer on the field to continue dealing damage. At number 7, we have Gardevoir from Delta Species. It came with the Poke Power and 2 attacks. The Poke Power was Energy Jump, which could be used once per turn to move an energy card from one Pokemon on its side of the field to another Pokemon. The first attack was Psychic Rage, which needed 1 Metal Energy and 1 Colorless Energy to then choose one of the opponent's Pokemon and deal 10 damage to that Pokemon for every damage counter on Gardevoir. And the second attack was Black Magic, which needed 1 Psychic Energy and 2 Colorless Energies to then deal 10 damage plus 20 more damage for each Pokemon on the opponent's bench. Gardevoir was a Delta Species Pokemon during the 3rd generation, being a Metal type in addition to its Psychic typing. It was used in a deck known as Mercury alongside Starmie, also from Delta Species. And how the deck worked was Starmie would use its Poke Power Metal Navigation to attach a Metal Energy onto itself from the deck, and then Gardevoir could move that energy onto another Pokemon with its Energy Jump power, letting them act as a consistent energy acceleration engine every turn. One of the main attackers of the deck was Registeel EX from Hidden Legends, whose Steel Wave attack would hit the opposing Pokemon for 50 damage, and would also spread 20 damage to each of the opponent's benched Pokemon that had the same type as the active Pokemon. And because Registeel was a Metal Pokemon, it could take advantage of Metal Energy's ability to reduce the opponent's attack damage by 10, which would be further reduced by another 10 by its Exoskeleton Pokebody, letting the deck tank hits while also dealing out damage. At number 6, we have Mega Gardevoir EX from Steam Siege. It came with 1 attack and the Evolution Rule. The Evolution Rule stated that when Mega Gardevoir was evolved, the player's turn would automatically end. And the attack was Despair Ray, which needed 1 Fairy Energy and 1 Colorless Energy to deal 110 damage, plus Mega Gardevoir could discard any number of benched Pokemon on its side of the field and deal an extra 10 damage for each Pokemon discarded. Mega Gardevoir was a powerful attacker toward the end of the 6th generation and into the 7th generation, though it was slowed down by its Mega Evolution Rule, so it had to be played alongside its Spirit Link to bypass its inherent downside. Its attack power could be boosted by discarding Pokemon on its side of the field up to a total of 80 extra damage by using the Stadium's Skyfield to increase the bench size up to 8. and loading up the bench was easy with Pokemon like Hoopa EX from Ancient Origins and Dragonite EX from Evolutions, as Hoopa had the ability Scoundrel Ring, which could search the deck for up to 3 EX Pokemon to add to the hand, and Dragonite had the ability Pull Up to add 2 discarded basic Pokemon back into the hand to be used again. As a Mega Pokemon, Gardevoir could be used alongside Mega Turbo to attach discarded basic energy cards onto itself to fuel its attack in a single turn, letting it attack out of nowhere and start taking quick KOs. At number 5, we have Gardevoir from Ruby and Sapphire. It came with a Poke Power and 1 attack. The Poke Power was Psy Shadow, which could be used once per turn to attach a Psychic Energy from the deck to any Pokemon on its side of the field, but that Pokemon would also take 20 damage. And the attack was Energy Burst, which needed 1 Psychic Energy to deal 10 damage times the number of energy on Gardevoir and the opposing Pokemon. This card was the first Gardevoir ever released in the game, and it was used in a top deck during the 2004 World Championships. It was primarily used as an energy accelerator, fueling the attacks of bigger Pokemon in the deck to deal damage, though in a pinch Gardevoir could also be used as a decent attacker, as it could grow stronger by loading it up with energies. Its main partners were another Gardevoir that we're going to be seeing later on in this list, and also Gorebyss from Hidden Legends, as its Mystic Water attack could hit Blaziken for weakness, which was another big Pokemon in the format, and it could grow stronger by being powered up with Psychic Energies through Gardevoir's Psy Shadow ability. At number 4, we have Gardevoir and Sylveon GX from Unbroken Bonds. They came with 2 attacks and a GX attack. The first attack was Fairy Song, which needed 1 colorless energy to search the deck for up to 2 fairy energies and then attach them to Pokemon on its bench. The second attack was Kaleidostorm, which needed 2 fairy energies and 1 colorless energy to deal 150 damage and could then move any number of energy cards from any Pokemon on its side of the field to any other Pokemon. And the GX attack was Magical Miracle GX, which needed 3 fairy energies to deal 200 damage, and if they had an extra 3 fairy energies attached, Magical Miracle would also shuffle away the opponent's hand into their deck. Gardevoir and Sylveon were the focus of a fast-paced fairy-type deck toward the end of the 7th generation. Most versions of the deck only ran 5 Pokemon, which included 4 copies of Gardevoir and Sylveon and a single copy of Lugia GX from Lost Thunder. And the purpose of the deck was to quickly power up Gardevoir and Sylveon through the use of their Fairy Song attack, accelerating fairy energy onto the bench. Since the deck ran so few Pokemon, it could get away with using a huge variety of items and supporters. Switch and Mallow and Lana could be used to cycle through different attackers in the active spot, and Tack Switch could move energy from one copy of Gardevoir and Sylveon to another. Since no Pokemon in the deck had any abilities, the supporter Green was perfect for searching out key pieces, as it could only be activated if there were no abilities on its side of the field, and it could search the deck for any 2 trainer cards, depending on what the player needed. As Fairy Pokemon, Gardevoir and Sylveon could take advantage of the tools Fairy Charm Psychic and Fairy Charm Lightning, which would protect them from any damage caused by Psychic and Lightning Pokemon respectively. And as 2 of the biggest attackers in the format were the tag teams Mewtwo and Mew and Pikachu and Zekrom, the Fairy Charms were the perfect counters to their attacks. Lugia was used in the deck as its Lost Purge GX attack could get rid of a problematic Pokemon on the opponent's side by instantly sending it to the Lost Zone. At number 3, we have Gardevoir EX from Sandstorm. It came with 2 attacks. The first attack was Feedback, which needed 1 Psychic Energy and 1 colorless energy to place 1 damage counter on the opposing Pokemon for each card in the opponent's hand. And the second attack was Psystorm, which needed 1 Psychic Energy and 3 colorless energies to deal 10 damage for each energy card attached to all Pokemon in play. This Gardevoir was in one of the top decks of the 2004 World Championships, and it was used alongside Gardevoir from Ruby and Sapphire. Its Feedback attack could potentially deal massive damage depending on how many cards the opponent had in hand, though its real power came from its Psystorm attack, which could reach huge numbers when combined with the regular Gardevoir's Psy Shadow ability to load up more energy on the field. Boost Energy was also handy to quickly power up the attack, and also increase Psystorm's attack power by an extra 30, letting it take surprise KOs against the opponent. At number 2, we have Gardevoir GX from Burning Shadows. It came with an ability, 1 attack, and a GX attack. The ability was Secret Spring, which could be used once per turn to attach a fairy energy from the hand to a Pokemon on its side of the field. The attack was Infinite Force, which needed 1 fairy energy to deal 30 damage times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. And the GX attack was Twilight GX, which needed 1 fairy energy to shuffle 10 cards from the discard pile back into the deck. This Gardevoir was a powerful Pokemon in the 7th generation, whose ability and attack had perfect synergy, as Secret Spring could accelerate multiple energy per turn, boosting the damage output of its Infinite Force attack. Double Colorless Energy and Triple Acceleration Energy were also used with Gardevoir GX, further boosting its attack power by an additional 60 damage and 90 damage respectively. Alola Ninetales GX from Lost Thunder was another powerful fairy Pokemon in the format, and was used alongside Gardevoir, as its mysterious guidance ability could search out 2 item cards from the deck, giving the deck more consistency, and could also increase Gardevoir's attack power just a little bit farther by searching out Choice Band, letting it take one-hit KOs against most Pokemon in the format. And finally, Gardevoir's Twilight GX attack was the perfect counter to control-style decks that aim to discard all of the opponent's resources, as Twilight GX could shuffle all the resources back into the deck, giving Gardevoir a better matchup against these types of decks. And finally, at number 1, we have Gardevoir from Secret Wonders. It came with a Poke Power and 1 attack. The Poke Power was Telepass, which could be used once per turn to search the opponent's discard pile for a supporter card, and then use that supporter's effect as its own. And the attack was Psychic Lock, which needed 1 Psychic Energy and 2 Colorless Energies to deal 60 damage, and would also prevent the opponent from using any Poke Powers during their next turn. This card is far and away the best Gardevoir released to date. It had an incredibly strong Poke Power, essentially allowing the player to use 2 supported cards per turn, and its attack would lock the opponent out of using their own Poke Powers. And not only was this Gardevoir powerful on its own, it was around toward the end of the 3rd generation and into the 4th generation, giving it access to powerful support in the form of Double Rainbow Energy and Scramble Energy, which acted as a Triple Rainbow Energy if the player was behind in prizes, letting it be powered up in a single turn. And after these 2 special energy cards were rotated out of the format, Gardevoir got access to Double Colorless Energy to allow it to continue dominating. And if that wasn't enough, Gardevoir could still grow stronger by leveling up into its Level X form, making it that much harder to KO. This Gardevoir was so powerful, it was seen in 2 top decks both in 2008 and 2010, taking the World Championships in 2008 and 2nd place in 2010. So between having a great Poke Power, a great attack, and great support, it's easy to see why this Gardevoir was such a powerhouse in every format when it was available, which is why it has come in at number 1 in this list. So what's your favorite Gardevoir card? Let me know down in the comments below, along with any suggestions for future videos. And be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video to help this channel grow and reach new viewers. Thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, this is the Holland Phantom logging out.